Hello everyone, my name is Jocelyn and I'm an incoming junior at Saratoga High School. So this video is going to be about the various HDMI display issues that I encountered as I was building my smart mirror. So to give a little bit of context, basically I had set up my Raspberry Pi already and the HDMI display was working perfectly fine. However, as I went along in building my project, I figured out that I actually needed a bigger display, just because for the smart mirror, it was better to have a bigger display because it's a mirror, it should be big. As a result, I did exchange my smaller display with a bigger 10.1-inch display. So that's just a bit of background. So after I got my 10.1-inch display in the mail, I opened it and tried to hook it up to my Raspberry Pi, but it didn't work. So I tried to connect my Raspberry Pi instead to my TV, and the TV worked. The HDMI was working perfectly fine. It was displaying on the TV. I was really confused why it wasn't working on my 10.1-inch display. So after a bit of fiddling around, I realized that it was because my 10.1-inch display was on the wrong channel. So my old display did not have multiple channels. It was just HDMI, but this new display does. It has VGA, HDMI, and a few others. I realized that I wasn't on the HDMI channel this entire time. So after switching it back to the HDMI channel, it worked again. But then after it was working all fine and dandy, the next day it didn't work again. The no signal screen, that blue screen that I really hate, was up there again. And this time I did check, was I on the right channel? And I figured out that I was. I was on the HDMI channel. And I knew that it wasn't a power source issue. That was actually one of my hunches for why my old display didn't work. But I know it's not that issue because I did a bit of research and figured out that if it were a power issue, then the Raspberry Pi's red light would be blinking. But my Raspberry Pi's red light was not blinking. So yeah, I knew it wasn't a power source issue. So after that, I tried to figure out what the issue was. I really didn't know. So I just decided to edit the Raspberry Pi file config.txt. So config.txt is basically a file where if your Raspberry Pi is not booting up correctly, you can go to this file to edit stuff or to uncomment code to make your Raspberry Pi work. So I tried to uncomment the first line, which is HDMI safe, which says that it's built specifically for if you get a no signal on your HDMI display. And I did that and the display did work. However, I realized that this display now had a black border around its sides. So I tried to edit that by disabling overscan, but that didn't work either. That didn't change anything. So after going back into my settings, I realized that it never really displayed overscan. It was always enabled. I also tried changing my resolution and it didn't work either. It seemed to be set in one specific setting. So because of this, I went back to config.txt and realized that HDMI safe actually puts your Pi in a safe mode where you can't edit any settings, edit preferences, you can't change the resolution. So as a result, I decided to comment HDMI safe, and instead I researched the code that replaces HDMI safe, so the code that HDMI safe runs without putting your Raspberry Pi into safe mode. So I replaced the code with the new code, and after that I went back into my Raspberry Pi. It was connected because the code was basically replacing HDMI safe, but instead this code also let me change the resolution. So it let me change the resolution to my monitor preferred resolution, and then that fixed the problem. So yeah, those were the issues that I encountered so far. That's those issues and how I solved them. Thanks for listening.